Hi everyone. If this is your first time meeting me, my name is Tiffany Schroyer and I'm your instructor. And what I wanted to do in this section is talk a little to you about student engagement, because it's one of the things that in my coaching most of you talk to me about. In fact, when I walk into a classroom as an instructional coach, it's the first thing that teachers say to me that they want. I want my students to be engaged. I want them to love math. I want them to be on task. I want them to watch me the whole lesson. And I say to them, what does that look like to you? Because for most teachers, that means that their eyes are on you and they want to do the next problem. But when I look at a lot of things that are happening in classrooms, I say, okay, let's go back to square one. Let's think about what it looks like from the perspective of the student. And sometimes I think, let's take a look at what you like to learn like as a teacher. So I say, all right, engagement 101. Let's look at the best things I've seen as an instructional coach, and I'm going to support some of those things with some ideas for you. So in this section on student engagement, which by the way is my personal favorite as an instructional coach, because it's a lot of the times what I get to model for teachers is how can you make your class more engaging. I'm going to give you some strategies, and some of these strategies are engagement, and some of them are on classroom management and how you can manage your kids as you're engaging them. So sit back, relax. If you start to get a little drowsy, if you start to get a little tired, pause. This is a good section. So pause, take a break and come back. Pause, come back, and stay with me. So the first thing I say to teachers and that they say to me when they see me instructing and modeling is, wow, you never stop moving. And that is true. Teach with a perky pace. Anita Archer is a leading researcher locally that I have actually researched, and she talks about teaching with a perky pace. I never stop moving. I'm a butterfly. When I model in the classroom, I am all over the classroom all the time. I never stop moving, because if I am moving, your kids' eyes are moving. They are tracking me. They want to see where am I going, and they're on their toes. They don't know if I'm coming to their group. They don't know if I'm coming to their desk. They don't know where I'm going, but they want to be on their toes in case I am. Additionally, while I'm moving around, oftentimes I'll keep a handful of stickers or a stamper. I like to keep a stamper with me, or even if you don't have stickers or stampers at your disposal at the moment, grab a marker, and especially a Scentsy marker or a marker that smells, a Mr. Sketch marker. They love it, and I'll mark on their paper, oh, great thought, outstanding, or I'll put a star or my initials. Why they like the initials of a teacher, I don't know, but they think it's amazing if I initial their paper and say, oh, I saw that, nice work. That's something that is engaging for them and keeps them moving. So that's something I think that would be an engaging feature for you to add to your repertoire on a daily basis, but keep moving. And I'm not talking about just slowly walking through the class. Move with purpose. Keep moving throughout as you go. That's something that I think teachers take from me, because it's the first piece of feedback they give me is, wow, you moved the whole lesson, and I do. So as you're circulating your groups, and your groups, as we kind of looked at in the first section, was how is your class layout? Remember, we talked about groups, and I gave feedback to each of you as you wrote to me what your class looks like about how to organize your classroom. Remember, you should have your students, for the best mathematical discussions, organized into groups that are meaningful. And we're going to talk right now really quickly about what those groups should look like. There was a while back when we first started organizing groups in classrooms that we were organizing groups by high, middle, low, academically. We found mathematically and in general that that's not the best way, because your highest learners and your lowest learners in your groups have too far of a stretch between them for them to understand one another. Your highest learners don't get why your lower learners don't get it, and your lower learners don't have a clue what those higher learners are saying. So here is something that I've kind of shared with a lot of the teachers that I've worked with about grouping their students. First of all, a lot of our math content right now is focused on reading. So as I'm circulating these groups, I want to make sure I have a decent reader in each group. Someone that can read those higher level problem solving questions, those hot questions, or those think math questions, so that everyone in the group knows what the question is asking. Secondly, I recommend a higher middle, recommendation. That's my recommendation is higher, middle, middle, middle. So what does that look like? So I've got a higher thinker in a group and then a middle thinker in a group, but a middle higher thinker. Now you're confusing me, Mrs. Schroyer, Tiffany. What's going on here? So I'm looking at those students who, think about your bubble kids, those kids who you're trying to get from proficient to advanced, but you're not sure how to stretch them. If they're high enough, if they're close enough to the higher thinkers in their mathematical content, they can stretch to the higher thinkers' content knowledge. They can stretch to that advanced thinking if they are partnered with them. But then I have my middle people, my middle students. Those are those proficient students that are just proficient. They've been proficient. They've maintained that middle level proficiency. Those are good students to put together with those middle high thinkers because they can gain points in proficiency. They may not jump a proficiency level, but we're looking at growth now. They can grow points in proficiency too. And then I have my middle low. That's the student that just made proficiency. Proficiency is just now where they have achieved their highest level of understanding. They can now grow as well from listening to the middle students. They're all now able to carry conversations of a higher level with one another and stretch thinking. Okay? Now let's go. That's one set of groupings. The next set of groupings now is your middle high level students, your middle level students, your middle low level students, and your low students. That is where you're going to put those students that can now, again, stretch one level from one another. So now we've got our learning support students not all grouped together, which is what some classrooms do. We've got our learning support students grouped into different groups because our learning support students in a lot of times can support concrete understanding, which is the ability to use the manipulatives, which is another form of engagement. We'll talk about that briefly in a moment. But we can get those students with the concrete understanding of using tools and how those tools connect to what's going on the board up there. They can help that student in the middle understand that they can help that student use the tools so that they can connect to what is happening representationally on the board up there. Those two groups of thinkers can come together. So now we've got our higher group of thinkers with our middle group of thinkers and our middle group of thinkers and our lower thinkers together. Everyone is balancing one level up or one level down with someone for growth. So as I'm moving around my room with my stamper or my marker or my highlighter or my stickers to look for outstanding thinking as we go, not always perfect answers, by the way, but outstanding thinking. Another strategy that I've seen used in classrooms is the cup strategy. And I've seen it used a lot of ways, but I'm going to tell you two different ways that I've seen it used. So here's an example of the cup strategy. These just came from the Lego table in my son's room, so bear with me. I have some teachers who have 3 different colors of cups. For today's demonstration, I'm only using 2, but they have green, yellow, and red. Their cups for green are, we're good to go. We're good to go. So the teacher will say, place your green cup on top. If your group is ready to begin, you're good to go and your group is working. Fantastic. Then change it to yellow as you're proceeding, but you're getting a little bit confused and it shouldn't go to red unless you're stuck. Here's where I'm changing that just a little tiny bit. I tell those teachers, red should not happen in your classroom unless everyone in the group has worked together or questioned one another about what the problem is. Now you can do it with 2 cups. Yellow, we're working, but we have a question. We might need some help, but we are still working. We are still progressing together as a group. So for example, if we're working on numbers 1, 7, and 11, which, by the way, selecting intentionally which questions we want to work on is something we'll talk about as we're lesson planning later in this class. So intentionally in selecting questions to work on, that's something that this kind of engages students as well, but we'll talk about it later. But if I'm working on numbers 1, 7, 9, and 11, for example, and I'm on number 7 and it's making me a little confused and I'm stuck and our group has talked about it, but we're still working on, let's say number 9. I can do number 9. I'll put my yellow cup up because I have a question for the teacher that I can't answer and we've tried to figure it out. So I know that I need to go to that group and I need to help that group. The red cup would then tell me we're stuck. We've done everything we can do. We've done all the other questions that we can do. I now need help from Mrs. Schroyer. That's one way that you can do it. And then the green cup, if the green cup were on top, would indicate we're good to go. We're working the whole way through. And then the red cup then could indicate we're either done or we're stuck. That would be an indicator for you to stop at that group, see what they're doing. Do they need help or are they finished? Mental check, yep, we're good to go, we can move forward. And then that would also let you know if that group, if you're seeing consistent questions on a particular problem, then perhaps you need to address that problem full group. Okay, so there's the cup strategy. I've seen this used in the upper grades. This strategy has worked very well in grades 4, 5, 6. I haven't seen it used in 7, 8 locally. When I taught in Erie, we used it in 7 and 8. My students found it very effective. I'm a pretty big Steelers fan, so I used 2 cups and we used black and yellow because obviously I'm a Steelers fan and it was black and gold. You can use whatever color cups you'd like to develop that strategy. The 3 color cups worked really well for the teachers that I saw. We talked about the red, yellow, green. Students are used to those colors. You can use whatever colors you would like as long as you've established a strategy that works for them. 2 colors are fine. 3 colors will work as well. Establish what you'd like in your classroom. Additionally, one of the things that I see that connects back to those math practice standards from the beginning of the class is establishing conversations within the group. It's very engaging. One of the things that I do with teachers as I do walkthroughs or for instructional coaching is I tally how many times they ask students to have mathematical conversations with one another. I'll tally how many times they say, you know what, talk to your shoulder partner. Think, pair, share. Talk to your shoulder partner. Ask your shoulder partner the answer to number 7. What is the area of this particular garden? Talk to your shoulder partner. See if the 2 of you come up with the same solution. If the 2 of you don't, figure out which one of you has the right solution based on your evidence. Those are questions that then become engaging for students because, oh, we need to figure out who's right, who's wrong, and why, because the teacher is expecting us to come up with a solution. You should ask your students to collaborate and talk with one another, either with their shoulder partner, their face partner, or their group every few minutes to keep them engaged. I give students an opportunity to talk with their partners regularly because number 1, it keeps them engaged and on task. If we lose as adults, if we lose our attention about every 7 minutes, and I'm looking at my time, I'm about 12 minutes right now, so I should, according to research, lost your attention at least once, maybe twice, at least once. If I don't give my students an opportunity to collaborate and talk, there's a very good chance that I'm going to lose their attention. Our math minutes are precious. We need to give them a chance to collaborate for engagement, but we need to give them a chance to collaborate because the math practice standards allows us to give them a chance to defend their thinking. Math practice standard number 3, we want them to defend their thinking and have a justification as to why they believe their answer is correct based on evidence. We need to support that with communication and conversations. So talk to your shoulder partner. And then talk to your face partner. But then teachers say to me, how long do I give them? I always set a time. I'm going to talk to your shoulder partner for 15 seconds and figure out which the 2 of you are correct. If you tell us that a student 15 seconds and you hear good quality conversations, you can give them 10 more seconds. They'll never know. They'll think it's a gift. They'll never know, even if they did count to 15, that you gave them an extra 10 seconds based on how long it took them to have that conversation. But you can always rope them back into the conversation you're having as a class if you need to take a few seconds off. If it was too long, rope them back into the conversation by saying, all right, let's hear what the 2 of you had as a conversation. Who wants to share their thoughts on what the area of this garden was? How did you figure that out? Who figured it out differently? Goes back to some questioning too. I oftentimes tell teachers to use a timer, and I say that because using a timer in class eliminates a lot of wasted minutes, which happens so quickly in math. We get students to talk, great. We get students to share out, great. We lose time so quickly. We lose time because students like to share their ideas once we start practicing some of these strategies, but then we lose time because we will take, for number 7, finding the area of this garden, then we'll start talking about perimeter because somebody added the distance around this rectangular garden. Oh no, now we're talking perimeter. Perimeter and area. We need to have that conversation because that's one of the biggest misconceptions about finding the area of this garden. I can't let that teaching moment go. All right, so let's talk about that. So now we lose 5 minutes of our class period because we had to build in perimeter. So I'll tell teachers, build in timers. So we're gonna talk for 4 or 5 minutes about this particular concept. At the bottom of this section, there's an engagement model listed for you. I showed you how to break down the sections. I showed you how each portion of your lesson should be broken down to help you figure out how you should be using the minutes of your lesson. But using a timer for you as a teacher, how much time can I devote to this? Where should I spend the most of my time? But then on the opposite scale, how much time should I dedicate for my students? As I mentioned, I'll give you 15 seconds to talk to your face partner, 15 seconds to talk to your shoulder partner, 30 seconds. This is going to take you a little longer. I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 60 seconds. By the way, after you say 10 seconds and 15 seconds, long enough to students to talk to their shoulder partners, when you give them the 60 seconds, they think you're giving them like an hour. They think 60 seconds feels like an eternity. When you tell them to talk about a big problem and you say, I'm giving you 60 seconds, their faces are like, oh my gosh, she's serious. This is a big deal. Or he's serious. This is a big deal. So keep that in mind. That's going to happen too. But always give them a time, give yourself a time. It holds you accountable and it holds them accountable and it gets them focused instantly. I almost always start with ready, set, go. Just so you know. So I'll say, all right, I'm going to give you 22 seconds to figure out I'll use the distributive property. Here's another one. I'll give you 22 seconds to use the distributive property to figure out what the product of these two numbers would be. Ready, go. And then I start looking for that conversation to begin. And they do. They begin quickly. They begin with their group. The conversations happen. And then I can stop the timer and bring them together. It's also important that as we're looking through our lesson, we're selecting meaningful pieces for them. Because if we don't select something meaningful for them to do, and we give them a sheet of repeated skills, we're not giving them something engaging enough for them to do. If I give you a skill sheet to do as your instructor, you're bored in the first line. If I give you something that's a challenge, something that's interesting to you, something perplexing. Dan Meyer talks about perplexing students, giving students a sense of perplexity. And you'll see Dan Meyer a little later in the class, but he gives them, he's a researcher, but he gives them an idea of perplexity. And if I'm giving you something that you want to know the answer to, or you're curious about the answer to, you'll work harder. So selecting some questions, and usually those fall in the problem solving, finding the answer to them, I want to know the answer to them. Those are things that will give them perplexity that they'll want to find the answer to. My primary friends out there, K1, 2, even 3, as my teachers are thinking about data right now and how they can fit data into their curriculum, because data is one of the places across the state that we tend to score pretty low. I just read where on Pinterest, where a classroom took a cookie, a gingerbread man cookie, and each student received one cookie and took one bite. And then they stopped, and the teacher had the students tally on the board with a pictograph what part of the gingerbread man they ate first. It created a beautiful pictograph. That is intrinsic motivation. They want to know what everyone ate. That's a task worth doing. They want to know, and then to compare and to have conversations. Think about those kinds of things. Looking in your text, what are the things that they would want to know the answers to? What can we build into those classes? A lot of times, using the tools effectively is a way to build an engagement. And sometimes the tools, and you're looking at your planning guide, your teacher's manual, and you're seeing, oh, I'm using base 10 blocks today. Sometimes using your base 10 blocks is engaging, but teachers feel very concerned about using their base 10 blocks because it takes time, it's messy, and they're going to be all over the class, and they're going to get off task, and they're going to be loud, and all of those things. Let me tell you a couple of things about that first. Okay, manipulatives are intended to be used for mathematical thinking. If you're a teacher that's not using them for much right now, the first thing I encourage you to say to your students is these are math tools, not toys. We need to use them as tools to help us understand our math. Present them in that way. Your students will typically respond well. Secondly, if you present them in tubs, in buckets, I have clear plastic buckets that I use, or at the Dollar Tree, Sorry, not promoting Dollar Tree, but that's where I find them because we all try to save a buck when we're trying to buy tools for our class. But at the Dollar Tree, I'll find caddies that are typically used for, like, I don't know, the shower. And I will fill those with my manipulatives, and I will have them pre-prepped for the day and place them out. If you find something like that where they are already ready and prepared as tools, your students will respond to them in the way that you present them. So these tools are being used to help us. Model what you want to see. So I model for my students. This is how I use them. This is how you use them. And then I look for students using them properly and give them the credit they deserve. I like how this group over here is using their tools. They're talking about using their tools. Jonathan has shown Desiree how these two tens these two tens can be combined together to make 20. They have now created an addition problem with two tens. These are conversations that if you model what students are doing in your classroom, they will use them properly. You're not looking for perfection when you're using your manipulatives, especially as you're just beginning them. Your students need to become very comfortable with them. But anytime students have an opportunity to use manipulatives, it's engaging. It also develops their conceptual understanding of the math. That leads to why the numbers make sense. So tools in general, manipulatives in general, help them become engaged, help them make sense of the math, and keep them focused on the lesson for the day so that as you're circulating, you can look for those good mathematical modeling mentalities. But additionally, tools aren't just always manipulatives. How about whiteboards? Every class that I model in, I'll say, I'll assume almost within maybe 60 seconds, do you have whiteboards? And sometimes the teacher says yes, and sometimes the teacher says no. And one of the biggest factors of teachers not having whiteboards is the fact that they're expensive to buy. I don't purchase whiteboards because they do wear out. I make them. I use a sleeve protector, like you slide papers down in a sleeve protector, and then I'll take a picture and upload one if you'd like. Email me if you need an example. But I'll take a sleeve protector and slide a piece of paper or cardstock down in, and then drop my dry erase marker in it and a piece of felt. And that's my dry erase board. You can mark right on the outside of it, and then when it's worn out or ratty, I toss it. I can purchase a whole package of them for usually $1 or $2, especially during the fall sales right before school starts. They're usually $1 or $2 to purchase a whole package for a class. But we write on those. Those are the best for engagement. I can get formative assessment off of my entire class as well as keeping them engaged within 10 seconds. On your whiteboards, I'd like you to show me the sum of 27 and 52. 5, 4, 3, 2. Notice I counted down. I just counted down to you as a model. I want you to show me in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They hold up their whiteboards. I can see their mathematical thinking. I can see which students are making mistakes and regrouping. I can see which students, as they are adding, are not regrouping their tens digit. I can see what their thinking is. And as I see those things, I remember, number one, they're engaged. Everyone's eyes are on me. Everyone is participating. Everyone, although I may have a doodle from time to time because they do get off task, everyone is now looking at the math, everyone is doing the math, and everyone is on task. And those are all of the things that at the beginning of this video and engagement, you tell me you want. I can use those whiteboards for all of my courses. If you are not just a math teacher, if you're not self-contained or just a math teacher and you teach social studies, science, writing, and reading, those whiteboards can be used for any content area. But those are a great tool mathematically for me to get students engaged, on task, and showing me what they know. I love to use them at the beginning of class. I love to use them in the middle of class. I use them as a freeze checkpoint. Students will be working in groups on their questions, and I'll pause and say, okay, everybody look at question number 4. I'd like you to show me what you and your groups have question number 4 as your solution. That's my checkpoint in with them, so I know and they know that they should be finished with number 4, and I want to see how they're progressing. Everyone hold your boards up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone shows me their board. I say, all right, we can keep moving. Keep moving. I'll give you 2 more minutes with your group to keep working, to keep writing, and then they can progress. It allows me to see what my class is learning as a whole, as I'm circulating, but it also allows them to see that I'm holding them accountable for what they're working on, and it's engaging. Everyone gets to be at the board at the same time. I don't have to fight for space at my chalkboard. Everyone gets to show me what they're thinking at the same time, and I get instant, almost immediate gratification of knowing that my students are on task, on track, and ready to keep moving forward. Additionally, at the very end of the class, I have a lot of teachers who say, I don't have time for an exit ticket. I love exit tickets. Exit tickets are a wonderful form of formative assessment that allow me to see what my kids know and what my kids don't know. Sometimes a whiteboard at the end of the class, quick skill problems from the day. Show me what you know about this. Here's a skill question. Answer the skill problem. Move forward. Allows me to see, do you know it? Don't you know it? Do I need to remediate this? Or do I need to take these 5 kids and make a small group? I can do the same thing with some whiteboards. So I'm looking down my list of things I wanted to talk to you about for engagement, and I've given you a few extra that weren't on my list, but the things that I know that I use on a regular basis. You need to move around the room and move with a perky pace. Do it consistently. Think, pair, share, and collaborate a lot. Remember, you need to have them talk with one another regularly so that they are engaged, but also so they're sharing mathematically their thinking. Math Practice Standard 3. The cups. 2 cups if you like, 3 cups if you'd prefer. Any color of your choosing, as long as you have defined what each of the colors represent. Additionally, I do have a lot of teachers that use them and post a poster in their classroom about what each color represents. That's an idea. Groupings, the seating charts. I'm going to post something in terms of a picture of ways to organize your seating charts, something that might help as well. Counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone show me what you know. All eyes on me, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Using a timer, selecting good tasks, something that they want to find the answers to. Using tools, and sometimes using tools not only being manipulatives, but also being your whiteboards, your coloring tools. Coloring tools are oftentimes underestimated? No, that's not the right word. They're not considered as important, but they truly are, especially when you're looking at things like area models. When you're looking at things like you're looking at your base 10 blocks and you're showing specific characteristics of place value, that's a good way to use coloring tools as well. But looking for ways in which to engage students was my purpose of the video. I'm going to post this video. With this video, I also posted the engagement model. It allows you to, as I mentioned, it allows you to see how you can break down your period. I believe it's designed for 70 minutes because a lot of you have 70 minutes for instruction for math. So take a look at that, see how you can break down your instruction by 70 minutes. It was designed specifically for Go Math and for the Go Math curriculum somewhere and how it could be used for one of the districts that I was working with. But take a look at it. And if you have questions, email me. I think I'll see you again in another video. Have a good one.